Welcome back, CSE 121, to part 2, the exciting second part, hopefully conclusion of color labels using Tkinter GUI and the Python language. And we didn't really get to a whole lot of Python yet, but we will hopefully in this video. And all we have is color labels so far, and let's make some buttons. And that is a button widget. If you look in FBot here, I think they may show you some button widgets. It's just like a label, except it's button with a capital B. And you can give different properties to the button as well, or you don't have to use any properties. And there'll be a default looking button just like it is with HTML. So let's get into our buttons, and then we'll actually use our buttons, to call a function. So let's go back, and that's something we don't do with regular Python, so that will be fun. So let's make our buttons. And again, you could put some, comments here. You could just put color labels and put that in a comment. And down here, I'm going to put my buttons, and I'll put that in a comment, command /. And let's make some buttons. And I'll call this button R for the red button equals, and then it's button with a capital B, just like we did with label. Button R equals button, and then in parentheses, see, it'll turn yellow once you get the parentheses there. And I don't know if we have to do anything with it. We have to put text in it, so let's put text. And so there's something on the button. Let's make it dark red, because it'll turn it dark red. We're going to turn it dark red. So we'll kind of put the label on it of what it's doing. So we'll make it turn dark red. And we could adjust the width later once we look at it. But let's do a couple here. The next one will be button G, and we'll turn it dark green. And the next one will be button, I'll just paste it, and this will be button B. So we have our RGB, and this text will say dark blue. And if you go to run it, you will not see these buttons yet. Why not? Because we didn't pack them, or we didn't use the grid geometry. So we're going to use the grid geometry. So we can do this. We can put it right after here and just put button R dot grid. I'll just copy these to make it quicker. Button G, button B. So we're going to use grid, and then we're going to use, let's just copy the row column stuff in here. This will be row 1 because it'll be the next row. And we can just put it in column 1, I guess. It could just go down the center. You don't even have to specify it. You can even put a column span. If it's something that's a lot longer, you could just put column span 3 if you want. You could put it in column equals 0 and then span 3. So you could try that. I think it's column span. I think it's the whole column span. Oh, there it is, column span equals 3. We'll make it span 3 columns. Now we could just copy this, paste it. Now that's row 1. This will be row 2 because we're going to be going down. And this will be row 3 because we have them in the first row, second, third, and then they're all in column 0 and they're all column span 3. So let's see what happens here. We didn't put any colors on here, so it may just be default looking buttons, gray buttons like HTML buttons. So let's see what happens here. Let's stop it and let's run it. And they're a little small, so we could throw some size in there, but they don't look bad. And you can also put a uniform width. So that would be up here, so we can go size. Now the other one was size 30, and we don't need it that big. We could do size like 24, so I'm going to put comma, and now that would be in font where we do that. So let's wait till font to the end. Let's just throw a width in here of 7, and we'll do font equals, and let's see if we need an actual, I read something where you said you have to put in a font of none even if you don't choose one, but let's see if you don't. Let's just copy this. I'm just going to copy all this stuff here and put it here, and make sure you have your commas separating them. And let's see how that works in terms of our buttons. Stop, run. Seems to work okay. It's making it bigger. Although the type doesn't look as big. I'm not sure how if this is working or not. Let's try 30. See if that makes that type much bigger. I don't know if it's just doing the width. Let me just make 160. I just want to make sure this is changing or it's not working. No, that's not working. So I guess that is right. So let's go back here and make my font like 24. Now you could just leave them like that, but it looks like you have to put in none like that. Let's see if this works before I do anything else. Yeah, okay, that's working, and now that's too big. Let's make it like 18. So you do have to put in a font even if it's none. So let's copy this and throw it in here where I had just 24. So you can't just put a font size, you have to specify font even if it's none. Okay, and it looks like our width isn't enough for this. So if you want them even, then you have to make sure it's a bigger width. So maybe I'll put like 11. See how that looks. Don't forget your equals in there. There we go. And that actually works out pretty good. So that's a nice size. And notice it does have like a rollover state, so you don't have to do a lot with the buttons. They look like buttons. Now what we want to do is actually click on a button and make that change to a dark color. So that's going to involve writing some Python code, and it'll actually involve putting a configure property to make that change. And we're also going to do something called command, which actually runs it. So let's see if I remember this of how to run the command. We'll try one of them here. So let's do this first. Let's make a function. So I'm going to go right here after the color labels, and I'll just go up here and just put function, comment that, and here's our functions, and we'll just do a regular Python def, and we'll give it a name, and I'll just call it dark red. That's going to be the function name. And then we'll do, I believe, let's try one here, labr configure, that's coming up here, configure, and what are we going to configure? Well, we're going to change the background color to a different color. So I'll just copy this, and we're going to configure the background color of labr to be a different color instead of red. Now you could change it so that that color is red, and you could make them opposite, or you could look up dark red. By the way, if you ever need to look up HTML colors, just look up HTML color codes, and then you could look up color names, HTML color names. And if you want to, look at a red, here's a fire brick dark red. So there's dark red. There's probably a dark green and a dark blue, but let's just check. Let's look down here to our greens. And there's a dark green. Okay, we have dark green. Let's see if we have a dark blue. And we have a dark blue, so we could use those names. I don't think you need to use the capital letters, although they look nicer. They're easier to read. They have a navy and a midnight blue as well. But we'll use dark blue because this is the RGB blue. So we'll use a dark blue or a navy if you want. But let's try dark red first. We'll put dark red, and we'll do it just like the HTML name. Now, we don't have this, we have a function definition, but we're not calling it. So we also need to call it. So I'm going to go down here before the grid and then call it. Now, you can call it right on the button. So you can put it as a property right in here. And actually, if I go here, maybe it'll break the line here. I could go here, and I think I can put command, there we go, command equals. And I think what you do is you just put the function name and nothing else. So whatever the function name is, dkred, it kind of knows that, and I think that's all you need. I don't think it has to be in quotes, and I don't think it has to have the parentheses, even though it's showing it here. From what I did in the past, I don't think it had parentheses. So let's just see if it works, then we'll know. So let's hit stop and we'll run it. We'll get an error if it doesn't work, probably. And it worked. So what I did worked okay, so it made it a dark red. Now that I know how to do that, it shouldn't be that hard to change it. So we just need two other functions, and these should be pretty easy. And we'll just kind of be consistent with the names. That'll be a dark green function, and we'll make this dark green. Copy this. Now you can see I forgot to do something already, so I'll go back and check my code because I need to update everything here, and this will be dark blue or navy if you want to use navy, that'd be cool. So this should be the dark blue function. And what else do we have to change? This, the button. So we have to change the label. We have to specify the label that's changing. So this is the LBG label, and this is the LABB label. So now we're telling that label to change colors by the configure. And you could do anything. You can make the name bold or something, or you could change the name to dark red if you want to. Instead of being red green, you could make it dark red. You do anything you want. That's the idea here, is we're just kind of learning something very simple, but to do kind of more complex stuff later on with this if we want to, by making an interface. And what else do we have to do? Well, we have to put our command on each button. So we're going to put a command after this. Now remember to put a comma, and I'll just paste it. And I'll go here after the font, put a comma, and paste it. And the commands are going to change. This will be the dark green. This will be dark green. And this will be dark, and it's actually coming up. It's helping us here. So the last time I used this, it was a little harder, although it's still, it's not something I use every day. Tkinter, every 4 years, I might mess around with it a little bit. But at least it's working a little bit better in Replit. So I think everything's okay. The only way to find out is to just try it out here. Stop it. Dark red, dark green, dark blue. And one other thing I'll do here, and then I'll let you work on it, because you're going to do one other thing. You're going to add a reset button and put the colors back the way they were. Now, how hard would that be? Well, you can make one function that changes them all back to their original color, and then that function can be called by the reset button. So that's your hint of how to do that. And one last thing we could do here, if we wanted to change the background color of our window, which is root, we can go here and do root.configure and click on configure, and then we can do bg equals, and I'll just use something like dark gray. I think it uses an A, although I think it might use both. I'll use an A instead of the E for gray, and let's see if that works. And it changed that background color. So now our buttons stand out a little bit in white on our window. So lots of different things you could do here. You can change sizes, all kinds of things. We're going to try to use this to make a little form that we can enter some data. We'll see how complex we want to get here at the end of the semester with this, and see how you like using this so far. But as long as we're jumping into it and doing some things, we might as well do some more. Otherwise, it'll seem like a confusing little thing. It'd be like using turtles once and not using it again. So we'll try to use it for more Python. We only did a little bit of Python here. Again, what you need to do to finish this off is add one more button. That'll be on another row, and just by looking at everything else, if you followed everything else, you're going to have one more button. It's going to be a reset button, and it'll turn these colors back to their original. So after you do this, you're going to have a reset button that you'll click on, and it'll make these colors go back to their original color. So you'll do that part on your own, and that shouldn't be that difficult. So that's part 2. That's EX26 color labels using Tkinter, and we'll hopefully do a little bit more with Tkinter to finish up the semester. So when you're done, all you have to do is just send me that link inside your add comment for the exercise in Unit 14.